Hi, friends. Yeah, I think you're muted. I guess it's my stream now. Alright, hello, my name is Eggs. I like eggs. These are my eggs. I have a lot of eggs. That's my theme. That's all I do. I own the channel. It is all mine. I still don't hear you. Eggs have taken over. Wait, I have a surprise. I have a surprise. It's an egg and an— oh, you can't see that. Wait, if I gotta— there we go. You see? It's a golden egg. And there's an egg in the egg. Yeah. That is weird. Weird indeed. Love the egg puns. We love the egg puns. I drank water and stretch. Think I won't do that? You think I won't drink water and stretch? I'm stretching. Ash, hello. I still feel like I'm too bright. I can hear you, but nobody else can. I don't think. Dance break. I still do not hear you, Mac. Oh no.
Yes, indeed.
Oh.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no, no.
What does the shirt say? They're getting requests for what my shirt says.
Oh god.
Oh god.
We hear you. Oh my gosh, it works. It's working.
No, yes, I hear you. I hear
Okay,
you.
okay, okay. Oh my gosh. Hi everybody. I figured it out. Kind of. I think I got it. I think I understand why it wasn't working. Okay.
Celebration, guys.
Woo! Hello Oreo. Welcome in. Welcome in everybody. Welcome in.
This is what my shirt says.
Amazing, amazing, spectacular. Welcome in everybody. So this is the first episode of Gamer Brains, my podcast that I'm starting to talk about mental health and whatnot and content creation. And I'm very excited to have the lovely GlitteryEggs as my first guest. I'm very excited for this. Everyone, I don't know if everyone was here, but you might remember that I did a ADHD panel back in October, and I really liked doing that. It was really fun, and I wanted to do something more long term. So I expect one of these every month or every couple of weeks is the plan. So yeah, so I'm excited that all of you guys are here. We're gonna just talk about it. GlitteryEggs.
Pog.
Aw, thank you.
I figured now would be a good time for that.
Oh yeah, it was behind some stuff, so I moved it. So now the alert box is on top. So thank you for the sub. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Great.
And now your name is on the screen twice. There you go.
Yeah, as it should be.
Oh yeah.
I'll just cover the screen with my name.
GlitteryEggs, everywhere.
Yep.
So yes, I'm very excited. Mental health is something that's super important to me, I think, and there's a lot of overlap I see between content creators and mental health. Like, I don't know, there's just a lot. So I see that connection a lot, and I felt like this could be a fun opportunity to just have a chance where we can all talk about this kind of stuff and put it out in the open and not feel like we have to hide it. So I myself have anxiety and then bipolar disorder. And I just got recently diagnosed with bipolar disorder in October after I was hospitalized.
Oh wow. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I was on antidepressants for a while, and antidepressants actually make bipolar worse. Fun fact.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it was a fun mess. So I got hospitalized, but then I was able to figure out what I have, and I was able to get on medication for it. So that's kind of where I am at in my journey. But I've had mental issues for about as long as I can remember, because I grew up with anxiety, like severe childhood anxiety and stuff like that. So I've been dealing with anxiety and depression and all this kind of stuff for a long time. So it's been a part of my life for a really long time.
Yeah, I've also had mental health issues, kind of like you, Max. Like, as long as I can remember, they've existed. I've been diagnosed with autism, and my therapist thinks I might have bipolar disorder. So we're gonna see a doctor next week to see if that's true or not. So
Twinsies.
That's very convenient. I know.
Oh, I forgot to mention I have ADHD. That as well. I forgot to mention that. I got diagnosed with ADHD freshman year of college.
Yeah. So I don't remember what year I was, but I was 19. So either freshman or sophomore year of college, I was diagnosed with autism.
Yeah.
And for a while, doctors didn't really say anything was wrong. They're like, oh no, she's just quirky.
She's just special.
She's just cool. She's just not being stimulated enough in school. She's just a little lazy. I'm like, okay, I don't think it's what that is. And that's a whole separate thing about how with autism and ADHD, especially in females and people who are born female, it doesn't get properly diagnosed, or it doesn't get diagnosed until later, and so that's also a thing.
Yeah, I definitely experienced that because my older brother, I have several older brothers. I came from a big family, but my closest older brother to me got diagnosed with ADHD when he was a lot younger because his presented in a lot of different ways. So it was more he acted out, whereas I was a lot more reserved and quiet. And my anxiety actually developed my anxiety as a coping strategy for my ADHD. So I basically motivated myself with my anxiety and stuff like that. And so I was able to hide a lot of it or cope with it using my anxiety.
Yeah.
Which wasn't healthy, but it
Yeah,
worked in
very,
hiding
very
it.
unhealthily disguised yourself with another with another thing.
Exactly. Exactly. Definitely not the
Yeah.
healthiest.
No, that makes me think like back to high school when I don't know what I was operating on, probably like a robo brain where
Mm.
everything was just I had no time for any sort of mistakes. It was always work and school and work and school and extracurriculars. So like I was very focused and like I didn't give off like necessarily neurodivergency-ness.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I got to college, I had more freedom. I had a little bit more independence. I had um more independence and freedom with creating my own structure. And I
Yeah.
realized, wow, like the way I want to structure my life is way different than how everyone else is structuring their life.
Yeah. I feel like for me when I got to college it was just there wasn't that structure there anymore to like hide it. I couldn't hide behind structure that other people were giving me. And I started noticing it like the more I got into school, like the less structure they provide. Because even when you're a senior in high school, like they provide less structure for you. Because you're trying to prepare for college. But like once I got to college, it was just I realized how lost I was without that structure and how much I was like struggling without it. So yeah, I think but talking back to a point you made about like girls just not getting like diagnosed, I think they say because it's like it's often presented differently, but I honestly think like because of the way girls are raised differently than boys, for me, and this is like not a professional opinion, this is just like my own theory, is like because of that we're able or taught to like hide it better or like cope with it differently than boys are. And that's like, I don't think, because I don't know if it's like a fundamental difference in our brains or if it's more of like the social aspect of how we're raised.
I think it's a little bit of both. Because I know like it's kind of like how history, like when we learn about history, it's very whitewashed, it's very Eurocentric. That's kind of the same thing with medical stuff. Like I have a lot of friends who went to nursing school and they said a lot of what they're learning is very much focused on white male bodies.
Yeah.
And that's not how things are always shown. That's not normal. That's not the only thing that exists out there. So it's definitely like rooted in that as well.
Yeah.
Like we're teaching our future nurses, our future doctors, like a very skewed perception of how medical conditions present themselves.
Yeah. I just this past semester took a gender and race in the sciences class, and we talked a lot about that of just like if there's a discrepancy in the research that often leads to discriminations or discrepancies in the practice of it. Yeah.
That seems like such a fascinating course. I wish I would have been able to take something like that when I was in school.
Yeah. It was really interesting. We learned a lot about stuff. I feel like we focused more on like physical health, less on mental health, but a couple people did like do their final project on like how ADHD is like not as like commonly diagnosed in children as in girls as their children versus like boys, like how it's missed more. And for a long time people thought, oh, boys just have ADHD more than girls, but then figuring it out that that's actually not the case. Probably at least.
Yeah, it just reminds me like how like heart attack symptoms present differently with men and women, and how that's like slowly becoming more recognized and stuff.
Yeah.
So even like I know mental health is stigmatized more than physical health, but even like things with physical health are still showing that discrepancy.
Yeah.
So it's like there's a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I wonder, I mean, I'm not sure about with bipolar if I haven't seen anything that shows like there's a notable difference in how like girls and boys. Sorry, it was the music. I was like, why is there talking? What's happening? It was the music. Anyway, but there's quite a bit of like I don't know if there's a difference in how like or you know what I'm saying, like if there's a difference in how like men and women are supposed to like present bipolar disorder, if it's mainly the same. I feel like I haven't seen a lot of discrepancies or like people saying that it's different, but I don't know. I don't know if you've heard anything
Yeah.
about that.
I also haven't done that much research or information in it. My therapist has said that like there are a lot of common things that like symptoms that I, not symptoms, but traits and characteristics that
Mhm.
I present with my autism that are also apparent in bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
So we're saying there's a lot of overlap with those, but she hasn't necessarily mentioned anything about disparities between like how it impacts men and women.
Yeah. I kind of doubt that there is a ton because I feel like I would have seen something by now because I've done a fair amount of research into bipolar just because like I
Mm-hmm.
want to know more about it. Like I just got diagnosed and like, I'm sure you can relate to this of just like wanting to know more
Yeah.
about it. Because it is a fascinating thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um it is annoying, I will say. I would say one of the reasons I want to know more about it is because like oh, this thing, like, what is it? And, like, why is it
Yeah.
making my brain do these things?
Yeah. No, um I've presented traits of bipolar disorder for so long, and my parents have said for so long, "Oh, like you act just like your uncle who he
Mm,
had bipolar disorder as well, and it kind of runs in my
red
family."
flag.
So there's also that. There's also the genetic hereditary aspect that,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but they were saying that I act similarly to how like he does. So I'm like, there might not be a disparity between yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have anyone in my family that I know that had bipolar. I know other issues were in the family and ADHD definitely runs in my family. But I haven't heard anything about bipolar specifically running in the family. So I don't really know where mine came from necessarily, which is kind of annoying because you want to have something to point to sometimes. You want to be
Yeah.
able to say like, "Oh, this is why this is happening." But I don't necessarily have that. I just kind of developed it. Uh
Yeah, it just appeared.
yeah, well, and I don't know, I think the onset of mine was probably like high school. It got
Mhm.
worse and when I got older, but I think I've had it for a while cuz I mean, looking back on it now it's like, "Oh yeah, I had a lot of like ups and downs and ups and downs." And the thing is that when I would have my ups, I would be like, "Oh, I'm fine. I don't need to go get help for this." And then I would dip down, but then I would get better eventually. So it was
Mhm.
just like that made it hard to get
You
help.
hope. Yeah, because I'm just thinking, "Oh, I'm just going through rough stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
fine. I'm chilling. Like, it's rough, but we'll get through it." And then I'm
Yeah.
great again. I'm like, "Oh, wow, this is nice.
Yeah.
There's no issue here."
Exactly. I feel on top of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, the manic is definitely I kind of miss it honestly because I'm on my meds right now and I don't
Mhm.
know like if you end up getting medicated, you might discover this. But it
Mhm.
also dampens the highs. So when I'm good, I'm used to feeling really good. And now my baseline is a lot lower than how it used to be. It's still good. Like I'm still stable, but it's like harder to be. It's like my happiness is lessened for
Yeah.
in a way.
That's definitely something I'm, like, worried about, the medication aspect. Like,
Mm,
I understand and I trust the science, but part of me is like, I need to feel in control of my body, and I
yeah.
feel weird with the idea that, like, putting something in my body can, like, change how I act.
Yeah.
That's why, like, I don't really drink a lot, I don't really, like, do any sort of drugs because, like, I
Yeah.
don't like how it affects me.
That's
Also
really
because drugs
interesting.
are
Yeah.
illegal. Don't do drugs, kids.
Yeah.
But
Well, depending on where you are, they're legal. Like
yeah,
marijuana is
yeah,
legal where I am.
yeah.
That's so interesting because I feel like I'm kind of the opposite. Uh, because I basically feel like medication is a way of taking control of my body because I was out of
Mhm,
control for so long and my mental state was so up and down and up and down. And so taking medication for me was a way of taking that control back.
mhm.
But at the same time, it does come with like those limitations and it does change your brain chemistry.
Yeah, yeah, and I know a lot of, like, mental health disorders and things, it's just a chemical imbalance, and the
Hmm.
medication is literally just fixing that chemical imbalance.
Yeah.
So it's just a chemistry equation.
Yeah.
That's all it is,
And
but
I
for
th-
some
oh,
reason, like, I've operated this way for so long that I
mhm.
would feel very strange operating differently.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that makes sense. That makes sense. Silver has been here before, Sparkly. That's funny. Anyway. Uh, but thank you for the support. I appreciate everyone that's listening. I really do. I appreciate you guys so much. Yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying the conversation so far. But yeah, I think medication is always an interesting thing. Because I think in some aspects, there are things in your environment. Like, there are environmental factors. It's not all brain chemistry.
Yeah.
But like for me, it mostly is brain chemistry because like I remember I was sitting down with my counselor and she was asking me, like, it was one of the first times we had met. She was asking me, like, do you have like big stressors in your life? Do you have like a big breakup or something like that? Or did something like bad happen recently? And I was like, no, I just, trigger warning really quick, I just feel suicidal sometimes for no apparent reason. And so for me, it mostly is just a brain chemistry thing, which is wild. And again, kind of that aspect of feeling out of control of my own brain. So that's why the medication helps me.
Yeah. And I'm definitely like interested to see like how that goes. Because like I said, I don't have a diagnosis yet. And so I'm very interested to see like what they say.
Yeah, well, and I think it depends on your functioning level. Like, how are you functioning without medication? Like, do you need medication or do you need, maybe some counseling, and that'll help.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm very interested. Very interested to see what happens. I was joking with my therapist since I talked to her right before this. I was like,
Love
"Oh,
that.
so you think it's bipolar disorder?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay, if you had to put a bet, like a very unethical bet, you would put your money on bipolar disorder." She says, "Yeah." I said, "All right, just to make it interesting, I'm placing an unethical bet on literally anything else except that." Just to be funny, just in case, just
Yeah.
for like shits and giggles, just to see.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go against your professional opinion for this
That's
unethical bet, just to see.
Yeah. So I'm kind of interested in talking now about, because we both have, or maybe both have, bipolar disorder, about like content creation. We'll be taking questions after our discussion, so in like 20-ish minutes or so.
Yeah, save the questions.
Yeah, but
write them down.
You write them down. Remember those. Remember the questions.
I type them in chat, but don't hit enter.
But yeah, so like content creation for me feels like sometimes it's really easy and sometimes it's really difficult. And when I'm manic, I'm like doing all the content. I have all the great ideas. I'm doing all that stuff. And then I hit a low point where I'm just like, can't create anything.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. Like I've done several forms of like content creation throughout my time. Like I think the earliest I did was like in high school. I did YouTube videos and it was mostly like fashion and style. And then I was super into it for a few years and then it trailed off.
Yeah.
And then I kind of did the same thing but on Instagram and I was like super gung ho about that for like a few years and then it trailed off. And now I'm doing streaming. So I've definitely noticed like the ups and downs.
Yeah.
With getting super interested and then like totally not feeling it at all.
Yeah. Well, and for me, it's like week by week. I mean, it'll be a couple weeks. Like content creation is something I've been doing consistently for now like a year and a half, which is wild to me because I am not consistent with like anything ever in my life. Because normally I get like short bursts of things. Like I made a podcast like before, it was like a fan cast of Magnus Archives, if anyone knows what that is. But it was like a fan cast and I worked on it for like 2 weeks and then I completely dropped it and I haven't touched it since then. But like content creation and streaming is something that off and on I've been doing now for a while. But there's definitely times when it's a lot harder. And like the thing is that they always say in order to be a good content creator and to grow, you need to be consistent. Yeah. And I feel like that's very difficult with people with mental disorders like ours.
Yeah. Yeah. No, something that like I've noticed with autism and something that I realized like the other day at work, because I work in retail, so customer service heavy job, and sometimes with autism that's really hard. And I'm often masking for most parts of the day, mostly just when interacting with customers, like My fellow employees, they already know all my problems. Like, I can act how I normally act in front of them.
Yeah.
But I noticed I catch myself masking sometimes on stream, and that's very terrifying. I'm like, no, like this is supposed to be a space where I can act however I want to act, yet I'm not. So
Yeah.
that's like a very like a weird just thing that I have that I've noticed. I'm like, I want to break out of that. I want to be able to feel 100% like I can be 100% me in my streams because it's a community that I've built based
Yeah.
on like being yourself. So
Yeah.
that's like an interesting thing.
Yeah, I find that too. I don't know if I mask. I think I never called it masking, but it kind of is where, you know, it's like you have a different persona where you're like presenting yourself as like in a certain way, and like instead of just allowing yourself to like be yourself. And like I find that it's a lot difficult to just be that when I'm streaming, because I feel like I have this pressure on me that I need to perform, that am an entertainer, so I need to be funny, I need to be on top
Yeah.
of it at all times. Whereas if I just relax and was like myself more, you know, that's actually what people are drawn to and what people come there for.
Yeah, like something that I still struggle with streaming is I always feel the need that I can't be quiet. Like
Mm,
I always have to be doing something. I always have to be saying something, and if I'm not talking, then I'm like humming or I'm like singing a random
yeah,
song. I always feel the need to fill the silence with something.
yeah,
Um, Even though like in my normal day-to-day, like I can just not talk for hours.
yeah.
Be completely
Well, and
talk.
part of that is like, you know, you want to talk because you are trying to be an entertainer. Like, you don't want to have too much silence. But I've gotten more comfortable with having silence in my streams, mostly because, like, I watch some, like, other streamers and I'm like, oh, they're not talking constantly. I don't need to talk constantly. Like, I can be okay with some silence, like constructive silence, you know, where you're just chilling. You're just sitting with the chat, you're just chilling.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely something I need to get more comfortable with because most of the content creation I've done in the past, it's not live streaming. So I'm used
Mm,
to being able to, if I need to pause and take a break, I always know that, oh, I can just refilm this. I can just reshoot it. I'll
yeah.
cut it out. But with live streaming, like everything that you say is there
Yeah,
and
I
is
know, it's
open and it's out
horrifying.
there.
It's kind of horrifying. Like, I don't know, like live streaming is hard. Like, it's hard work. It's a lot, especially I think for those of us who tend to mask or who tend to have those walls kind of up, just because like if we acted how we would want to all the time in public, we would be like frowned upon, or we would be, you know, not, it wouldn't be acceptable, I guess.
Yeah. And something that I've noticed, um, I'm trying to like transition further away from gaming streams, trying to do more IRL things.
Mm.
Like I've done like some painting streams. I did like a cleaning
Oh, I
stream
love
where I
that.
just went through my closet and I like held stuff up to chat. I'm like, I don't know if I like this. And I tried it on and I like showed chat. I'm like, I don't
Oh
like
my
this.
gosh.
So that was very fun. And like I did a baking stream for my birthday last month. And I realized with those streams, I was masking a whole lot less. I
Mm.
was more comfortable with silence. And I don't know what that says about like my hobbies and my interests, but I don't know. That's just something that
Yeah.
I've noticed. I'm glad you enjoyed them, Tom. They were
Oh,
fun.
yeah, that seems really fun. I'm sad I missed them. That sounds really fun. I think one of the things that's important, with, especially with neurodivergent content creation, is finding what you actually enjoy and not just
Mm.
doing something for the views. Like, I'm just going to use this podcast as an example. Like, this is something that I want to do. It's not necessarily something that's going to get me a lot of viewers or something that's going to, like, be really great for the growth of my channel, but it's something that I'm really like, passionate about, and it's something that I really want to do. And I stopped myself from doing it for so long because I was worried about the views, and I was worried about, you know, oh, it's going to tank my average viewers, or it's going to do this or that, or it's not going to grow my channel. But like also like it doesn't matter. Like, I'm having fun, and
Yeah.
I enjoy
Yeah.
doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I always struggle with with content creation, no matter what I'm doing, I'm a very analytical person. I'm a very
Mm,
literal person. So numbers, I love having numbers. I love having analytics and metrics and information I can go back on.
yeah,
Like in all like some of my favorite like jobs that I've had have involved like numbers and data and things like that.
yeah.
So when it comes to that side of things with content creation, like that's something I'm very zoned in and focused on,
Mm-hmm.
which is terrible. Like I shouldn't be so focused on the numbers that I am altering what I want to do just in order to perform better, which is so icky.
Yeah. Well, it's because, I mean, on one hand, most people do that. Most content creators do that to some
Yeah.
extent. And, like,
Mhm.
that's how you, like, grow. But at the same time, it's like, is that growth worth it if you have to, like, pretend to be someone you're not or do something? Oh, sorry, I just knocked my mic. Or do something that you're not actually, like, that passionate about. But I think,
Mhm.
like, that's the thing is, like, we get this idea that oh you have to be genuine in order to grow, but honestly I think there are a lot of like big streamers out there who just do what they do for the analytics. Like they
Mhm.
just do it, they're playing a numbers game and they're good at playing that numbers game obviously.
Yeah.
So it's hard for smaller people like us, smaller streamers, to be like okay balancing playing that numbers game because you do want to grow. Like I want my
Yeah.
community to grow so that more people can enjoy it, so that it can be a good place and like I can have a positive influence on more people in the world. But at the same time, I don't want to jeopardize my integrity for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think a lot of it is just discoverability. I knew like if my content was shown to more people would like it.
Yeah.
And the reason that I'm, not getting high numbers isn't because people don't like me, it's because people don't know about me. And
Yeah.
that's something that, we don't have to like dive into like the discoverability on Twitch and how much that sucks, but
Oh
like
yeah. Ugh.
that's also an issue too.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And for me, it is difficult because it's like it's hard when you're trying to balance mental health and also you should post on this platform and this platform and this platform and
Mhm.
also don't forget you have to work and make money and all
Yep.
this stuff and like oh my gosh and like there's just a lot. There is a lot. Content
Yeah,
creation is
there's
a hobby, but it's stressful.
Yeah, it's so much work for something that isn't necessarily guaranteed payout.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like I don't want to say shortcuts, but like there's a lot of ways to grow really fast that
Mhm.
aren't necessarily accessible for everyone.
Yeah.
Like social media is a very visual platform. So if you're conventionally attractive, you're probably gonna do a little bit better,
Yeah.
which is stinky, but it's true. And like if you have people in your life that are already have a big following and like you use your friends to help kind of hype you
Yeah.
up a bit, like that's what happened. I don't know how much people know about the Dream SMP, but like Manatreed is one of like Dream's friends, and like he got a lot of recognition and got a lot of the ball rolling,
Mhm.
because like Dream and like other people in that friend group were talking about him and hyping him up. So he was able to gain a lot of recognition very quickly through
Yeah.
that.
Well, and then there's the other element of being consistent, which we talked about is
Mhm.
very difficult for people with mental health issues, where
Yeah.
you might need to take a break, and physical health issues. Like I'm talking specifically about mental health issues because that's what I know the most. But like talking about just kind of anyone with some kind of disability or shortcoming, like there's just it's harder. It's harder to
Yeah.
grow, and I think that's it sucks to admit a little bit because you don't want to say like oh this you don't want to be like oh woe is me, this thing is so hard, but at the same time there are elements where like this is more difficult for me than it would be for someone else maybe.
And yeah, like it's a thing about like accessibility. Like certain things are just more accessible for people who are like neurotypical because that's just the way things have always been designed.
Yeah, exactly, things are designed for that. But I do think I think there is a big presence of like mental health awareness on Twitch, which is good. Like people are using the
Yeah.
tags and being like aware of it and stuff like that. That's one of the reasons why I was like, oh, this podcast could be an interesting way of like finding people who use those tags and like bringing up a
Yeah.
conversation with all of them, you know? Like, do you use, what kind of tags do you use? Like, do you choose to use, like, what, those
It
kind of tags on your streams?
I always use the LGBTQ one. That's not mental health related, but that's an identity I'm really proud of. I'll put in autism every once in a while if I'm feeling frisky, if I'm feeling fun.
Yeah.
Um, and also like I think for one of my IRL streams, I put that in there. I'm like, I'm gonna act like the autism is really gonna show today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I definitely want to like use those more because it's helpful for people to know that like, oh, like I want to find a comfort streamer that also has this, just like I do. Oh
Hmm.
wow, this person does, and it's a sense of like familiarity, but also like more of a safe space.
Yeah, exactly. I actually put the safe space tag on this podcast today because I wanted, I don't know, I haven't used it before and I thought it was a good time to roll that out because I was like, well, we got 5 tags to use, might as well use this one.
Yep.
But yeah, I agree. Like I always use the LGBT tag. I always use the ADHD tag, and I usually use the mental health tag because oftentimes people will ask me how I'm doing, and like I don't like to sugarcoat things. So if I'm having a bad day, I'll be like, I had a bad day. Oh, look at that! Tom found you the LGBTQIA plus tag.
That's how you found me.
Aw,
Wow. And then me and Tom have definitely talked a lot in streams. Like we both have autism, so we definitely have like a lot of good conversations about like how that impacts us.
yeah,
Um, and it's definitely like also rewarding for me, like as the streamer, to have people come in and like share about themselves too, because it's like a safe space is like beneficial for everyone in the space, not
yeah.
just the chatters and the viewers, but also like the streamer. So I've definitely like felt
Mm-hmm.
inclusivity from that too.
Yeah, it is kind of hard. Have you found it difficult though when people are like too down, or they'll bring something up where you're like, oh gosh, like you need to get professional help for this. Like you, this is
Mhm.
not the kind of place to be talking about like that kind of stuff. I don't know. Like there's a
I
reason why in my normal streams I don't bring up the fact that I get trigger warning, like suicidal. Like I don't bring that up in my normal streams because I feel
mhm.
like that can be too much for people, and it can be too much for me sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like while mental health is very important and we should always feel comfortable to be able to talk about it, always have safe spaces, we have
mm-hmm.
to be like acknowledging of like not everything needs to be mentioned all the time because like there's
Yeah.
different levels to safe spaces and there's different depths in what people are comfortable talking about.
Yeah.
Um, and if a space hasn't been set, like if the mood hasn't been set, like, oh, we're getting really deep today, it
Mhm.
can be like a little triggering or a little like just out of the blue when you're like randomly mentioning something super, super deep
Mhm.
in the middle of something very lighthearted.
Yeah, especially when it's like comes out of nowhere, if it's someone who hasn't been on the channel before, you know.
They're like, what? Where did this come from?
Yeah, you're like, "Wait, hold up, hold the phone." But I think one of the things is like it's a good thing to be able to be so open with such a small community. I think that's one of the good things about being a smaller content creator is you can have that vulnerability and that like, actual connection where you're able to share those kinds of things, but it can easily get into it where it's too much.
Yeah, I definitely like I specifically remember one stream where it did get too much. And that was back when I was really small and I didn't have any mods.
Oh no.
So I like frantically messaged a friend. I'm like, "Hey, you're a mod, help."
Yeah.
Um, because it was a lot, and it's even after like them helping a bit, I still was like, we're just gonna end the stream. Bye, guys."
Yeah.
Afterwards, I was like, "That's a little too much. I need to work on setting better boundaries in
Yeah.
chat as to what is comfortable, like what I want like what I'm okay with being talked about in chat and what I'm not okay with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's funny, Sparkly.
Instagram Reels.
I do it sometimes. I guess I gotta keep doing. I gotta keep it up because apparently it works sometimes. Well, I'm
Yeah.
happy. I'm happy you found me through that. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, yeah, boundaries are important. It can be very hard to set them, especially with a small content creator where you're trying to retain viewers as much as possible. Like you don't want to, but at the same time, you know, like there are times when you're like, this person is like, no,
They're
like
doing
not healthy for the
too much.
community.
Yeah, because I want everyone to feel comfortable saying whatever they want to, but also at the same time, like, don't say anything. Like, everything is not okay.
Yeah, I
Like, I
mean,
want you
yeah,
to speak your mind, but don't like. There's has to be some sort of limitations
yeah. I
because
mean,
what
oh, sorry.
someone's no, you're good. What someone is comfortable saying, other people might not be comfortable hearing.
Exactly. And I think that's the difficulty in balancing that. It really is, it's a balancing act.
Mhm.
Because you want to make people feel welcome, but at the same time, there's certain things where it's like this is not creating a welcoming space. I mean, there's a reason why I don't have a rant channel on my Discord. Some people do, but I don't because it just invites that kind of oversharing.
Mhm.
And one of the things that can cause is like when I get a little antsy with people and oversharing is like, dude, people on the internet can use that to manipulate you and not everyone is out to be your friend, and some people can use
Mhm.
that to really harm you, and so you have to be careful with what you share and
Mhm.
understand that whatever you put out there people can use against you, and like, you know,
Yeah,
be
which is
aware of
very
that.
icky. And I wish
Yeah.
everyone was, like, looking for the best in others, but, like,
Mm,
that's unfortunately not how it always is.
yeah, I know you really wish it could just all be roses, but unfortunately there are people out there that are not do not have your best interests at heart.
Yeah.
um well, it's about, I was figuring we could go for about an hour.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
okay. Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll move into doing questions now. So does anyone in the chat have questions? I know we had a question earlier. Let me scroll up to that. Um do you see ADHD as a double-edged sword if you want to comment on that? Okay. So, do you have ADHD? I know you mentioned autism, but
I just have autism, I don't have ADHD, but there's a lot of overlap in
yeah.
traits.
Yeah, I've been wondering for a while if I have just very severe ADHD or if I have some level of autism. I think I just have severe ADHD because I get a lot of there is a lot of overlap in the traits. So
Mhm.
you might be able to comment on this because I think it's a very similar thing with autism where it's something that people like to celebrate, but it's also really hard. It makes life very difficult
Yeah.
sometimes. Like my life was kind of a living hell for like a while because of my ADHD because I didn't have it diagnosed. But also ADHD can also be a really wonderful thing. So for me, I think it's all about creating a space that is conducive to ADHD. That's not just like because you live in a world where everything's made for neurotypicals, and that's
Mhm.
when you start having issues with ADHD. Whereas if you're able to be medicated or create a space where, you know, your ADHD doesn't hinder you, I think that can be a wonderful thing then.
Yeah, and I think about too, like, my experience and how autism affects me,
Hmm.
and the worst experiences I have had related to autism have always been inaccessibility or other people.
Yeah.
It's never been, "Wow, my autism is making this really difficult." It's, "Wow, these people aren't being very inclusive. This isn't a
Mm.
very accessible situation right now." Um, so for me, like, I've never really looked at having autism as a negative thing. It's
Yeah.
more just people don't know how to make spaces and make situations accessible and beneficial towards me. Like, just the other day at work, like, I was getting very overstimulated and I went nonverbal for like almost 2 hours. And that
Mhm.
usually doesn't happen unless I am like it's extreme when that happens. So when it did, like my boss like turned the music off in the store for like a few minutes just to
Mhm.
like give me a second to breathe, which was very helpful. But then he like turned it back on and like it didn't really make a difference.
Oof.
Um, but like even in that situation, like working retail and customer service while having autism, like, it's a very weird
Yeah.
combination, um, but it like I said, like, the only situations in which that, like, autism's getting the best of me, it's not really, it's just this situation isn't catered and designed to help me.
Yeah. I honestly would say, like, there have definitely been times where I have not wanted to have my ADHD, where, like, my ADHD is actually is the thing causing the problems, like, um, but I've come to have a more acceptance of it. And the same thing with, like, bipolar disorder, like, where, like, I'm trying to get to a point where I can be, like, happy for the good things about bipolar disorder and not just focus on the bad parts about it. Because the bad
Yeah.
parts are so bad sometimes, but there's also a lot
Mhm.
of good. Like my creativity and my, like willingness to like put myself out there and stuff like that is really good. But at the same time, there's a lot of bad stuff that comes with it. So I think a double-edged sword, at least for me, for like ADHD and bipolar really make a lot of sense because there's good parts and bad parts. But I think
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little bit different, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it's I'm also very egotistical, and I like to say that I'm never the problem. It's always everyone else. Um but like objectively looking at it, there are times like kind of like how you said, like I wish I didn't have autism in this situation, like
Mhm.
certain situations, like I would read it wrong. Like I thought someone was joking, so I would joke back, but they weren't actually joking. And
Oh.
then I'd just come off as an asshole. Or they were joking and then I joke back and they're like, "Oh no, I was joking." I'm like, "Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I
like
was joking."
yeah,
So like
exactly.
situations like that, where it just makes the situation a little bit funnier, but not like haha funny, like weird funny.
Yeah.
And, like, sometimes uncomfortable and sometimes, like, I'm kinda looked at, like, badly, like,
Yeah.
"Eggs, why would you say that?" Like, I
Yeah.
uh,
Uh, yeah. Oh,
and
okay.
I'm
Oh,
yeah.
sorry. What were you saying?
No, I was gonna say I'm definitely also trying to get more comfortable with, like, talking about having autism, like, I'm very comfortable on my channel talking about it, but talking about, like I just mentioned it, like, the other day to my coworkers that I have autism
Mhm.
because later my boss was like, "Oh, like, what was the reason you were getting so overstimulated?" Um, and it wasn't just my boss there, it was also, like, another one of the managers and, like, an associate.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I have autism, and I just get, sensory overload sometimes, and I get really overwhelmed by, like, sounds and noises and actions." And just in that situation, like, there were 3 associates around me, they were all talking, I was trying to work, and there were customers talking, and then the music was loud, and then the sun
Mhm.
was staring at my face a little too brightly, and I didn't really like that, and the inner part of my shoe is, like, peeling, and I can feel it on my foot, and then my jeans don't fit quite right now, like, the
Mhm.
button keeps, like, digging into my side.
It's just a bunch of little things like stacked up on
A
top of each
bunch of
other.
little things. Yeah. So I'm trying to get more comfortable talking about that. And
Yeah.
then he says, "Oh, like, blah, 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 whatever, whatever. Oh, can you hop on registers for me?" And I was like, "That's not something I feel comfortable with right now."
Mhm.
Like, it takes a lot of energy out of me to be able to talk right now.
Yeah.
And for my sake, I want to talk as little as possible, but also for the customer's sake, I want them to have the best service. And I
Yeah.
know I'm not at my best right now.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I have not worked retail or a traditional job like that because I feel like I
Mhm.
would be very bad at it because I get overstimulated really easily and when people are talking to me, it oftentimes is very difficult for me to like process that information.
Mhm.
Um so oh, we do have another question. Do you ever get hate by anyone and don't oh, sorry. And don't say the name. Yeah, like not to call like don't call someone out, but like do you ever get hate for your like I guess, being more open about having autism or, stuff like
Not
that.
necessarily hate, but I think me being open about my mental health also makes people think, "Oh, they're okay if I can tell negative things about them now." Like,
Mhm.
I'm opening myself up to more hate. Like, "Oh, this person is so open about it, so they're okay with me saying negative things about them." So I've had that before, and it's definitely more of like a it doesn't affect me as much. I'm like, "Wow, that's just you showing your colors,
Yeah.
not me being affected by that." But I don't think I've necessarily gotten, like, full on, like, hate. It's more just, like, people making ableist comments and
Yeah.
me rolling my eyes and walking away.
Yeah. I think the only time that that's happened is when I was doing my ADHD panel and we got hate rated. It was my like only hate, like not my
Oh,
only hate rated, but it was, yeah, it was really bad. Just people being like ADHD isn't real, or stuff like that, or saying like gross stuff in chat, and it's just like there is an element of like there's a lot of misinformation out there, and there have been people who come into my chat with my ADHD tag and they ask questions, or they're like, I don't
yeah, and
understand this. Yeah, and it's like they're at least well-meaning usually.
it's genuine curiosity. It's not
Yeah.
like, well, like, so you just don't think about stuff? Like, you just randomly think of squirrels? Like that's rude, but like, I
Yeah.
like when people come in, they genuinely ask questions.
Yeah, exactly. But you do, like you said, you open yourself up to like that. And I mean, me being like, hey, yeah, I struggle with sometimes being suicidal. Like that's opening me myself up to like
A
potential.
lot of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is like I'm only saying that now because I'm comfortable with being able to deal with it in the spot that I'm at right now. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, it's a lot to juggle.
Yeah, it is. Have you
Um,
ever felt like if you didn't have ADHD after you were told you did?
I was pretty convinced I had ADHD. I actually took the test and I came back as having basically severe ADHD, and I was like, that fits actually. Um, so there was times in high school where I was like, maybe I have ADHD, but I was always told, nah, you don't, or I was always like, no, I don't. So there were times before I got the diagnosis. Cat, squirrel, right? Stereotype. Anyway, but there were times before I got it. Yeah, I questioned whether or not I did, and I was really like unsure. But now I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Sometimes
I
with bipolar, I still am like, do I really have bipolar? Maybe I'm making it all up.
yeah, I think with me, it's a struggle I have with every single identity that I have. Like,
Mm,
I struggle with, am I autistic enough to be autistic? When that's not how that works. The
yeah,
whole like, oh, high functioning, low functioning doesn't
yeah,
exist. You either have it or you don't. Um, so like sometimes I do struggle, like, because I've met people that have way higher like needs and stuff than I
mm-hmm,
have.
yeah,
And I'm like, oh wow, like this sounds bad, but like I don't feel autistic enough to be saying I have autism when I
mm,
literally have a diagnosis.
yeah,
I noticed that like with my queerness too. Like I don't feel queer enough to say that sometimes.
yeah,
But also at the same time, like queerness looks different on me than it does on other people, and
yeah. There's
it's all
no,
about, yeah,
yeah,
there's no one size fits all, and it's just
mm-hmm,
a thing about feeling comfortable with myself and feeling confident in my ability to like stand up for myself and talk about things.
yeah. No, I definitely, yeah, I get that a lot. I relate to that quite a bit. Cause yeah, it's hard. I mean, like cause you see people acting a certain way or doing a certain thing and you're like, well, I'm not like that, so I must not have this. Like, and like for me with my bipolar, it's just like in terms it's like it's not it's not as severe as it could be. Like my highs aren't as high as they could be. So I'm always like, oh, do I really have bipolar? Like I'm making it up. When
Mhm.
it's just like I only have my own experiences, and my own experiences do fit the DSM-5 criteria for it. So it's like I don't know what else I want from that, but yeah,
Yeah.
I
I
still feel like an
definitely
imposter sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think there a lot of times in like media and things like that, um, there's only like one side of like certain mental health issues that are shown. Like, oh, like this is the only side that exists. And if you don't show these specific characteristics at their fullest severity all the time, then you can't classify
Yeah,
yourself as whatever that is.
yeah, exactly. Do you ever feel like you want to quit streaming because of ADHD autism?
I That's funny. I'm actually like taking a break from streaming right now, not because of ADHD and autism, but just because like I'm trying to focus like on improving my mental health and stuff because
Mm-hmm.
I've never actually like actively focused on improving myself.
Yeah,
Um
it's a lot of work. It's
yeah, it is a
a
lot of
full-time
work.
job.
Yeah, like taking care of myself is a lot of stuff. Takes up a large part of my day,
Mm-hmm.
as it should. Um but I don't think I've ever felt the desire to quit because of ADHD or obviously ADHD, but not because of autism. I think because like I don't know. I feel like I don't know how to answer this question.
Yeah, it's a hard one. I think for me, it's like, yes, but mostly because sometimes I lose interest in things. So that's why when I stream, I try to like do different things. Like I've been on a Minecraft kick lately, so I've been doing a lot of Minecraft. But
Mhm.
eventually, I'm gonna get bored of Minecraft, and so I'll
Mhm.
probably be streaming something else more than I am right now. And so it's just like for me, it's important to like mix it up and keep it fresh. That way, I don't want to just drop it all the time. But sometimes
Yeah.
with mental health, I do take really long breaks from streaming, always with the intention of coming back. But also like, yeah, it's hard because sometimes my mental health gets really bad and I can't stream. I just don't have the energy to stream, and
Mhm.
I don't want to bring my negative energy to your guys' lives, basically.
Yeah. I get that. Like there's low points that I hit where like I don't take care of myself as well as I should.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to put energy into doing something that I love that's really fun, but that I'd rather put that energy into taking care of my physiological needs
Yeah.
instead of streaming. So it's a tough decision that I make, but it's also like it's one that you have to make. You have to put yourself first.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think like again, if you didn't have this mental problem, you wouldn't have to worry about, having to take time off of streaming. So it
Mm.
can be difficult to be like, oh yeah, I have to make this choice. But I'm glad. I mean, I'm proud of you for being able to tell, because I think a lot of people wait, like me, I feel like can't take the time off before they have a mental crisis. I just take off the
Mhm.
time when I'm in the mental crisis.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So,
then I did that a lot too. I'm like, wow, like I kind of feel myself like slipping on the slope again. Oh, but we're fine. Ah, shoot, I'm at the bottom of the hill now. Time
yep.
to take time off.
Yep.
And then I never actually focus on like the root of the problem.
Mhm.
But that's what I'm trying to do now, and
Yay.
it's going great.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear it. Well, I hope you come back to streaming. I hope you come back to streaming because I love your
Yeah, I
streams.
thanks. I want to. I really want to, and I'm really excited. And I'm thinking like there's a lot of changes that are happening in my future. Like I'm moving in August, and I think
Okay.
that is a great like fresh start sort of thing.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. It'll be good. Yeah, I moved back home for the summer, so this summer is like my time of focusing on like mental health and streaming and stuff like that, because it's like,
Yeah.
but I also need to get a job, unfortunately.
Thank
Yes,
you,
exactly,
Tom.
Tom. Put yourself
Thank
first.
you, Tom.
Okay. Well, with that, I think I want to keep these kind of short episodes because I might have to edit them a little bit. And I don't want to have to edit like 2 hours of audio
Mhm.
into a podcast. But yeah, putting yourself first is good. Oh, Stu, we're just about to end. We're just about to wrap up. But you should totally watch the VOD or the podcast when I get it set up. Um, because I think this is a great conversation. I know, so sad, Stu. But I'll be doing my subathon tomorrow.
Yay.
Yay, I'm excited for that. So, look forward to that. Unfortunately, never put myself first and probably won't, but that's me. I'm being forced into it at the moment. Yes, put yourself first, Tom.
Oh, Tom, gosh darn it.
Don't get a job, it's a trap. Well, that's the thing is I need money though. So,
Yeah,
until I can support myself financially through streaming, I have to get a job.
yep, that's the capitalism for you.
Yep. Gotta get that bread. Exactly, exactly.
And we do love carbs.
Yes. Oh, I wish I could eat. I'm gluten intolerant. We just found out I have gluten intolerant, so I can't eat gluten. And it's very sad.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Anyway, we're getting off topic extremely, which I love. I love that. Um, but I think we're gonna go ahead and look for someone to raid. But thank you guys so much for all your questions and for coming and listening. I again wasn't really sure how this was gonna go. I was kind of expecting like no one to show up.
Oh,
I really was. But you guys are great, and thank you guys so much. And thank you, Glittery Eggs. I really appreciate you
of
coming
course.
in and being my first guest, working out
Yeah.
all the kinks.
Yeah, of course. And then this is
Oh,
Oliver
thank
chat.
you.
We saw him appear.
Yeah.
He's a wild Oliver. He's
Okay.
also here just to say hi.
Um gonna go ahead and raid someone who's playing 7 Days to Die because you can mess with them in chat and it's quite fun and it's a fun time. His name is Matt. Excellent stream. Thank you, guys. I will definitely be doing this again. I gotta figure out who my next victim, my next guest will be. But thank you, Glittery. Thank you so much. I really appreciated you coming in and doing this with me.
Of course, it's definitely a nice conversation to have.
Yeah, exactly. I felt like I learned, and I felt like we learned a lot about each other, which was great.
Yeah.
I love this. And I love your cat so much. Oh, okay. Mags raid, thank you, Texan Panda, if you want to use that as the raid message. Just omit the sub emotes if you don't have them. Bye. You're gonna go to the raid. Yes, Kitty is lovely indeed. All right. Thank you guys so much. I'll post this on YouTube, and then when I get my podcast actually set up, I'll post it on Spotify and all that jazz as well. So I'll see you guys later. Thank you so much for your support. Oliver, aw. Oliver's so cute.
Okay. Dance, Oliver.
Yeah.
Take part with the little dance.
Bye. Have fun with Matt, everybody. Yes. Okay.